안녕하세요. 저희가 오늘은 또 다른 이야기를 들려드리려고 합니다.
Yeah.
저희가 어떻게 만났는지 영상 올려주셨고 되게 많은 분들이 관심을 가져주셨어요. 그래서 너무 감사드리고 그 중에서 공통되는 질문들이 몇 개 있었는데 이거는 따로 빼서 한번 얘기를 들려드리는 게 나을 것 같아가지고 이렇게 영상을 따로 만들게 됐습니다. 우선은 제가 감기가 걸려가지고 지금 코랑 목이 너무 아파요. 그래서 좀 사운드가 좀 소리가 좀 보기 안 좋은 점 좀만 이해해 주시기 바랍니다. 공통되는 그 질문이 있었는데 그 질문 중에 하나가 So why did you become interested in Korea? 였거든요. 그래서 줄리엣한테 물어보려고 합니다. 왜 한국에 관심을 가지게 됐습니까?
Me? Oh, this is a long story. You guys better get your snacks ready. Get a drink. Okay, I'm just gonna make it as simple as possible. But I guess I shouldn't say Korea specifically, more of just Asia. Because it was kind of a domino effect of the reason why at the end I was interested in Korea, and we got a new student who was an exchange student from China. I never seen like a really Asian person in my city at that time, so I was really like, I don't know, interested. I really liked that exchange student, but she didn't speak English at all, so I couldn't communicate with her. And anyways, I moved to a new school like right after that. So
줄리엣이 되게 자주 이사를 다녔다고 제가 얘기를 들었어요.
yeah, right. I moved my school and I never saw that Chinese girl again. But I still remember her because I was so interested in her that every time I would try to learn Chinese from the TV, because there was a channel on the TV called like 5-Minute Chinese or something, and they would teach you like a little bit of Chinese every day. Everything I wrote, because I watched the TV and I wrote it down on paper, and then I went to school and I tried to show that girl, and her name was Meija. So I was like, oh, I tried to show her, and she was just like this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so I was really embarrassed because I had like a whole paper full of this Chinese, but it was of course wrong, and you know, I just had no idea, and of course Chinese is really hard anyways. And actually, by some luck, when I moved to the new school, there was also an exchange student. Not an exchange student, but an immigrant. So they immigrated from Vietnam to America, and she was new at the school, and I was also new at the school. So we became best friends.
You're talking Nian, right?
Yeah. So her name was Nguyen, and she was from Vietnam. And every weekend I went to her house, and we always were together. Like, she came to my house, I went to her house. You know, we were like this, always together. And I learned so many things from her because she's from Asia, and she was, you know, like, oh, I'll show you things that are popular in Vietnam, things that are popular in Asia, which was at the time Girls' Generation, K-pop, SHINee, you know, that kind of boom, the first boom of K-pop in international kind of. But at first, I didn't care about like the stuff, because at that time at her house, when she was watching some Korean drama, which was We Got Married, the TV show, she watched it with Vietnamese subtitles. So how could I understand anything? Of course I didn't, so I didn't pay attention. But she was always showing me, especially Korean orjang style. Like,
얼짱?
yeah, orjang style. She was always showing me that, and I really, really wanted to do that.
얼짱?
Yeah, I really wanted to, but I was so ugly, so I couldn't. So every time I cut my bangs at her house, and she tried to make my makeup like Asian style. She even tried to teach me Vietnamese. Every time I was at her house and kind of learning like that. But honestly, the first thing that was really, really interesting for me was Japan. Sorry. So even at that time, I was really interested in Japan, not really Korea, because even if she showed me a bit, I didn't really catch it yet. Like, I wasn't like super interested, because I started to watch Japanese animation and I listened to Japanese music.
치히로?
Yeah, like not just that, but a lot of other like TV show animations. So that was kind of my first big interest. Later, a few years later, like I started to remember about We Got Married, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that TV show was. I suddenly started to think about it, but I could remember it was called We Got Married. So I just remembered the episode when they were eating cheesy spaghetti. Like in the TV show, they were eating really, really cheesy spaghetti. So I was like, well, I want to watch that TV show. So actually, I started to watch that TV show from the beginning with English subtitles all the way. I watched the whole thing. And that's when I really, really started to have a big interest in Korea. So I really had a big interest in Korea after that. I always listened to Girls' Generation. Like, I love Girls' Generation. At the time, I was the #1 fan of Girls' Generation. Every time I was listening to Girls' Generation and CN Blue. Because of the TV show, we got married. Because they were on the TV show together. So of course, I was just like, I love them so much.
서연이랑 정용화 맞지?
Yeah, I really love both of them so much. I was just like a huge fan, and I really thought they were in a relationship, so I was really happy. So I was like, oh, they're really in a relationship, but it's not real. So later I was really disappointed because I was just like, oh, it was just a TV show, not reality. So yeah, so that was pretty much how I got interested in Korea, from all the way to the beginning to China, then Japan, and then finally Korea.
그러면은 두 번째로 많았던 질문이 How did you learn Korean? or Why did you learn Korean? 이렇게 물어보셨어요. 줄리엣에게 한번 물어보겠습니다. 왜 한국말을 배우기 시작했습니까? 그리고 어떻게 배우게 됐습니까?
Okay, so why I learned Korean and how I learned Korean. Of course, we talked about just now why I was interested in Korea. So of course I wanted to learn Korean. Just like I wanted to learn Chinese and just like I wanted to learn Japanese, I really wanted to learn Korean. I still remember before that, every time I watched some Korean TV show, I did not know anything. Like it looks like blah blah blah. Like I couldn't read it.
There was no subtitles, right?
Yeah, I didn't know anything, like nothing. I blank. So I really was like, oh, I kind of want to learn Korean because I like the way Korean sounds. Korean has a nice, well, at least Seoul accent has a really nice, smooth sound. So I wanted to learn really badly. I was actually embarrassed to like Korean things and Asian things, so I never told anybody. I was always hiding it. People would pick on you if you were like into that kind of stuff. Well, back then, not now, because now Korean is really, really famous, BTS or something. So everybody likes K-pop now, but whenever I liked it, it was nothing, and if people knew that, they picked on you. So I actually got picked on a few times because of it. So at the time, I didn't tell anybody. I was using my handphone and I searched Korean alphabet, Hangul, and I searched it. And actually, it was the middle of the night, around like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was under my blanket and I was learning Hangul under the covers secretly. So I learned it by the morning. So it just took me a few hours. Because I used the application, and it was memory application, and I kept using it for a few hours, and then I could read it by the morning time. So after that, I started to want to learn Korean, so I started to look online, like how to learn Korean, blah 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 blah, like learn Korean online for free, like something like this. I found talktomeinkorean.com, and I think that's really the best website for learning Korean. Honestly, it's such a good beginner kind of thing, and they have really high levels too, so level 1 through 9. It's really good teachers, like they have PDF, they have podcasting, like really good. So at that time I started to learn Korean like that, and I started to listen to more Korean music. At the time I still watched Korean dramas. So that's when I started to really try and learn Korean, and I bought some Korean books. So I listened to the CDs in the Korean books, and I did a workbook kind of homework by myself.
다 혼자 공부를 했다고 하더라고요.
Yeah, so actually I studied Korean by myself even till now.
지금도 혼자 공부하고 있죠.
Yes.
이 영상이 올라간 며칠 전부터 줄리엣이 이제 KIP라고 한국에서 제공하는 그 프로그램에 신청을 해서 이제 들어가게 됐습니다. 테스트 결과는 중급.
Intermediate.
네, 거기에서 이제 좀 더 실력을 쌓으면은 이제 더 높은 곳으로 올라갈 수 있죠. 네네. 그래서 이제 열심히 한국어도 공부한다니까는 지켜봐 주세요. 줄리엣이 한국어를 방송을 하는 그날까지 열심히 해보겠습니다.
I hope so. I really hope so. In camera, I don't want to. I'm too embarrassed. I'm too shy.
나도 그래.
Yeah.
저도 친구들 앞에서 줄리엣 만나면은 영어를 안 하거든요. 뭔가 좀 친구들 앞에서 영어 쓰는 게 좀 부끄럽기도 하고. 네, 그래서 그리고 줄리엣이 다 알아들으니까.
Yeah.
아무튼 이게 줄리엣이 어떻게 한국어를 알게 됐고 어떻게 한국어 공부를 하게 됐는지에 영상에 대한 그런 스토리였고, 더 만약에 궁금한 점들이 있으시면은 네, 남겨주세요. 저희가 그 부분에 대해서 질문에 답을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 이게 Q&A로 넣고 싶었는데 스토리가 길다 보니까는 네, 이렇게 잘라서 하나의 그런 영상으로 만들게 됐고,
Yeah.
네, 뭐 다른 질문들 있으시면 언제든지 남겨주시면은 네, 저희가 한번 반영을 해서 네, 영상을 올리도록 하겠습니다. 네, 그러면은 다음 영상에서 뵙겠습니다. 바이바이.
Bye.